All right, screen on me. So let's do this. Today's date, December 7th, 2019, and this is how the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host of the most, Will Buchanan. On how the Frack We Got Here, we do talk about the events of the week, whether they're U.S., political, or international news, and also try to make sense out of it all. Screen on me. So let's do this. And I'm getting feedback like a son of a bitch. I apologize. With that being said, guys, like I said, host William Buchanan. And before I do get started, I do have to sit there and say this is an adult podcast, which means that things of an adult language may be shown and things of a graphic nature may also be viewed to be your discretion is advised. If you're watching this on Instagram, I appreciate it, guys. But to actually see the full post that I see in my ugly face, you might want to go on Facebook.com. Basically, look my name up, William Buchanan, as is being broadcasted live on Facebook and as well on YouTube if you go to How the Frack We Got Here on YouTube. All right, so now that we got that little bit out the way, let's go ahead and start with the most obvious news bit. Of course, we've had another shooting at an airbase.
Staying in Washington, a major announcement from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi yesterday. After months of resisting, she officially began the process to draft articles of impeachment for President Trump. So I want to bring in Mona Kosar-Abbey at the White House, and we have Catherine Falders in our Washington bureau. And Catherine, I'll start with you because there are hearings on Monday. So I just want you to tell us what to expect and who we're going to be hearing from.
Okay, so the hearing on Monday is going to be this presentation of evidence, is what they're calling it. Now, the Judiciary Committee announced this hearing, but we're going to hear presentations from the lawyers on the House Intelligence Committee, the main committee that conducted all of the public hearings and the depositions behind closed doors, and from lawyers on the House Judiciary Committee. And what that says to me, the importance of that the judiciary lawyers are participating in this briefing. You see Jerry Nadler right there. But what it says is that they are considering an article of impeachment about obstruction, but as it relates to the Mueller report. You remember Judiciary was the committee that conducted the Mueller investigation. So we'll likely hear more about that. We don't have too many details yet how long these presentations are going to last, but we'll see a lot of the same lawyers who we saw presenting their evidence, and then shortly thereafter, they'll begin drafting articles.
Yes, so it's certainly moving forward. And Mona, the White House still has until 5 p.m. today to let the committee know if it will participate in this process, correct?
And that's right. But if you remember, the White House already opted out of participating in the Judiciary Committee's first public hearing that happened this week. So it's likely that they will opt out of participating in future proceedings as well. So with impeachment all but certain, right now it seems that the president is looking past the House and has his sights set on the Republican-controlled Senate, as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi yesterday announced that she instructed House Democrats to go ahead and draft up articles of impeachment. The president took to Twitter to declare, quote, "If you're going to impeach me, do it now, do it fast." And it's something that will likely happen before the end of the year, if not before Christmas. And it's something that House Republicans have actually criticized Democrats for doing. They accuse Democrats of trying to speed roll through this impeachment process. We heard from House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy yesterday, who said that the Democrats are trying to move fast because they're afraid that they will not be able to beat Donald Trump come November 2020 in the general election. But the White House has said that the president's team is looking forward to, quote, "a fair trial in the Senate where the president can fully make his case." And honestly, it's in both parties' interest to have a speedy Senate trial, given that 2020 is such an important year. You have the State of the Union, you have the primaries, and you have to remember also that three of the presidential candidates on the Democratic side are Senate Democrats as well, Kimberly.
Yeah, and Catherine, in the meantime, Rudy Giuliani is back in Ukraine, and I guess the question is doing what?
Yeah, so Giuliani back in Ukraine. He's meeting with Ukrainian officials, some of whom have come up in this impeachment probe. And he's doing this as part of a documentary series that is essentially to discredit the impeachment probe. He's working on it with the far-right station One American News. So he's over there today. We think he's leaving this afternoon. But the other thing, this raises a lot of questions because the House Intelligence Committee has already subpoenaed Rudy Giuliani for documents as it relates to his work in Ukraine. So likely hearing a lot more questions raised by Democrats as to why he's over there.
Okay. First, let me sorry about that. Wrong video queued up. But let's go ahead and talk about it since it's there. Yes, Nancy Pelosi did actually come forward and say what we've all been saying from Jump Street, which was pretty much the entire idea of, yes, We are finally going to introduce articles of impeachment. Even though the Mueller report many months ago, even as a redacted form, sat there and screamed that, when you have the multiple injustices of crime that he's already committed, and on top of that, the fact that Donald Trump is not really a very nice human being when it comes to shit. So we really shouldn't be surprised now that they're moving forward articles of impeachment, and we really shouldn't be surprised that in so many ways that this was coming. And the fact that Donald Trump is pretty much saying, well, you better go ahead and get me now because I'm going to win the next election, which I'm not saying he's not wrong, because let's be honest, the last election he was in, we all thought he wasn't going to win. Surprise, we did not know that weren't that many racists and bigots out there. But with that being said, though, this just proves to be another slippery slope, and like I said, another issue of delays and whatnot. And speaking of delays, which again annoys me so, because only a president would go this far to prevent anything from being released. And what I mean is this next clip.
And a major win for the president and the White House, specifically for President Trump. Our Ariane DeVogue, our Supreme Court correspondent, reporting now that the House of Representatives will not get President Trump's financial records for now. The Supreme Court said on Monday, dealing a win to the president, who is fighting on several fronts to shield the records from disclosure. We're talking about 8 years of financial records, at least for now. The Supreme Court has just decided the House of Representatives is not going to get them, Jeffrey.
Well, I'd like to know a little more about what the Supreme Court did. Sometimes they do what's called an administrative stay, which is basically let's we're not going to do anything right now while we review the papers, and those sometimes last only a few days. A true stay for the end, until litigation is over, could last for months. So since this is very much breaking news, and all I know about this case is what you just told me, I don't know exactly how significant it really is.
Jeffrey's right, Wolf. I mean, I think what the Supreme Court is saying here is that essentially they're going to set up a schedule for both sides to file some briefs in order for them to hear this out and decide whether or not they're going to take on the larger case. So for now, at least, this was hurtling down to a finish, and they were about to have to produce these records. So what the Supreme Court is doing here is essentially tapping the brakes, making sure that everybody has time to decide whether or not, this is something that they...
So let's be honest at this point. Donald Trump is really doing everything that he can to make sure that his documents are not released. Think about this for a second. He has lawyered, litigated, and really has went every route possible to make sure that his financial records are being released. You go and think that for somebody that's really this transparent and sat there and said in the beginning of his election that he would actually release his tax returns, has yet to do so, and is also trying to find every avenue of making sure that he doesnn't do it, should really tell you off the bat that yes, there must be a lot there, possibly criminal, allegedly criminal, we should say, that would probably tie him to severe crimes, even more so to where in this presidency. But the simple fact of the matter is, the Supreme Court has stepped in for a president. There has never been a time in history where the Supreme Court has actually stepped in for a president to make sure that his taxes did not get released. Think about what I just said. The Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, is now involved in making sure that a single American's tax returns do not become public. If that alone does not unnerve you just a little bit, then something is truly wrong with you. But the simple fact of the matter is just that, like I said before, and just like I usually talk with every Trump supporter that says this is a witch hunt, it's hard to say it's a witch hunt when this man is fighting very hard to make sure that his banks, former associates, management firms, and things of that nature, they cannot release anything. I swear at this point, Trump's financial records are being guarded more privately than probably your information at a credit card depot. That's just being honest with you. So again, you can't sit there and tell me there's not a lot of smoke to this fire when there obviously is. Which in this case, like I said, this is just one long winding show that eventually is going to have a finale. Now that finale is going to wind up being that I believe that those financial records are going to be released. And if they're released, I think they're going to show a different side of Donald Trump, mainly in prison colors. But Aside from that, let me actually get to the right clip this time, which I apologize earlier. I had the wrong clip queued up. This was the clip I wanted to show about the an unfortunate shooting that happened at Naval Air Station.
Breaking news this morning, it's hard to even process a deadly shooting in Pensacola, Florida at a Naval Air Station. At least 4 people killed, including the gunman. I want to go to Pierre Thomas in Washington with more. Pierre, if you can just give us the latest on what happened here.
So we're just finishing up a briefing in which the commanding officer of the naval station, as well as local law enforcement, spoke. And they said that this incident began around 6:20 a.m. Police responded about 6:50. What we know is that a total of 11 people were shot. 4 of them, unfortunately, are deceased. 1 includes the shooter. 8 people were taken to a local hospital. 7 people are still currently being treated there. Unfortunately, 1 of those people died. Again, a total of 4 people killed, 1 including the shooter. The law enforcement officials say that they got there as soon as they can. This whole incident took place in and around a classroom. They were not more specific than that. The shooter was neutralized, according to the authorities, by 2 deputies who engaged the shooter in gunfire. They have not identified the shooter thus far, but that whole community is grieving with this tragic event, Kim.
Absolutely. And Pierre, I imagine they don't know exactly why this happened at this point.
No information on motive. They have declined to name the shooter, give any information about the shooter and why this might have happened. But they do emphasize that had it not been for law enforcement getting there as quickly as they did, they do believe that there would have been more loss of life.
Yeah, and Pierre, if we just take a step back, I mean, this is, as I said, it's hard to process because this is another day, another shooting this week at a naval facility. How are people supposed to process all of this?
Well, the country is in the midst of a expanding phenomenon, increasing number of incidents where armed suspects are showing up in public places, trying to kill as many people as possible. We've seen just in this year alone, the Walmart, Texas, El Paso, Texas shooting, the shooting at the bar district in Dayton, Ohio, at a Virginia Beach government center, people shot and killed in a mass shooting there. Houses of worship, schools in recent years, movie theaters, shopping centers. No location has been spared. This happening even as the overall crime rate and rate of violent crime has gone down in recent years. This particular phenomenon, people showing up in public places trying to kill people, is something new and disturbing to law enforcement.
Yes, it is disturbing. It's disturbing. The simple fact of the matter is that, yes, we do have our gun laws in this country do allow some individuals to walk around heavily armed. Our gun laws do allow us to have body armor. Our gun laws allow us to possibly have guns and a civilian-style setup that we really don't need. Our gun laws actually allow almost anybody to get guns, especially if you go to gun trade and knife shows, in which they don't require background checks. Our guns, there's even the point to where you can make ghost guns, which are actually legal to have because the parts themselves are disassembled, but disassembled legally. We shouldn't be surprised that America does have a gun culture problem. At the same time, this is just one of those things where I just sit there and say, it's hard to sit there and say otherwise. That when you have these many shootings that I kept on saying the entire time in many podcasts, my fear is that we will become so desensitized to it is that we'll consider it a normal part of life. And that is honestly fucking scary. We never want to consider shootings to be normal. We actually want to prevent shootings. And as I've said before on many other podcasts, we have to honestly look at our gun culture and look at ways of changing it. Now, that might not sit well with some individuals, but again, the current status quo is that there are just too many loopholes and honestly too many ways of getting around it. And we honestly should not be surprised at this point that it is still occurring. And it's sad because how many lives it's going to take, because I thought after kids were killed at a school, at a middle school, you'd think somewhere that we would draw the line, but apparently we have no line, and that's fucking scary. But moving right along, guys, I do need to go ahead and get into this because like I was saying about Donald Trump and his taxes, and I still think there's a shitload there, but there's one point I want to reiterate, and it's in this piece by CNN Chris Kaliza, which I love the guy, but I love the fact that he just made something so simple and yet so understandable. And as many times I've said this to Trump supporters, it never gets old, but I'm still going to play it anyway.
Real ties behind me. Hey, let's talk taxes. No, not yours or mine, thankfully. That would be terrible. I mean Donald Trump's taxes. Now, if you know anything about the current president of the United States, it's probably that he's got a lot of money. He says it, well, all the time.
Part of the beauty of me is that I'm very rich.
I'm really rich. We got more money, we got more brains, we got better houses, apartments, we got nicer boats, we're smarter than they are, and they say the elite.
The whole, well, Donald Trump thing is premised on this idea. He started with not much, built it into a lot, and now does whatever he wants, including being president of the United States. To hear him tell it, he's a walking, talking American dream. Which is why a story the New York Times published this week is so devastating for the image of Trump as a guy who clawed his way to the top of the cash pile through sheer force of will. Now, you should read the whole piece, but here it is in one sentence. Donald Trump's financial successes were heavily funded by his father, Fred Trump. Let's take that small, Trump's words, loan of $1 million that he has acknowledged as all the help his dad ever gave him. Turns out that one loan was, according to the Times, more like many loans, totaling $60 million. That's 60 million. It's kind of a big difference. And that's just the money that Trump was given in loans. All told, the Times says that Donald Trump reaped more than $400 million from his dad's holding over his lifetime. Thanks to his dad's financial maneuvering, Trump was earning $200,000 a year as a 3-year-old. By 8, he was a millionaire, which, let's be honest, is good work if you can get it. But it makes this quote from Trump during an appearance in New Hampshire in 2015 a little bit eye-rolly.
My whole life really has been a no, and I fought through it. I have been, and I talk about it. It's not been easy for me.
And it makes this quote from a 2016 Republican primary debate just plain untrue.
I took $1 million and I turned it into $10 billion.
No. All of this great new reporting about where a large chunk of Donald Trump's wealth comes from, he got it the old-fashioned way. He inherited it. Explains a whole heck of a lot about why the president has been so resistant to ever releasing any of his tax returns. Start here. Trump is the first president in modern history to not release even a year of his returns. During the 2016 campaign, he also made history by being the first major party candidate of the modern era to refuse to release any returns. Which is weird, because in 2014, when asked about all this, Trump said,
"If I decide to run for office, I'll produce my tax returns, absolutely, and I would love to do that."
Hell, as recently as January 2016, after he'd been a presidential candidate for 6 months already, Trump said this, quote,
"I have very big returns, as you know, and I have everything all approved and very beautiful, and we'll be working on that over the next period of time."
Then, suddenly, he just couldn't do it. Because, you see, he was being audited by the Internal Revenue Service. Damn IRS. At a Republican presidential primary debate in February 2016, Trump said that, quote,
"Because of the size of my company, which is very, very large, I'm being audited. I will absolutely give my return, but I'm being audited now for 2 or 3 years, so I can't do it until the audit is finished, obviously."
That is one hell of a long audit. As of April 2017, it was still going, according to then White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer.
We're under the same audit that existed, and so nothing has changed. And the American people understood it when they elected him in November.
Now, there are a few large/gargantuan holes in that whole "I'm being audited" defense. One, there's absolutely nothing stopping Trump from releasing his tax returns even while he is being audited. In fact, Richard Nixon released his taxes in 1973 even when he was being audited. So it can be done. Second, the White House's explanation for why Trump isn't releasing his taxes has sort of shifted. Right after Trump took office, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway said this.
We litigated this all through the election. People didn't care. They voted for him. And let me make this very clear. Most Americans are very focused on what their tax returns will look like while President Trump is in office, not what his look like.
Now, the thing about that is, it's not clear either then or now how Conway drew the conclusion that people didn't care that Trump had never released even the most basic outline of his tax returns. There's no question in the 2016 exit poll that asked how much influence, if any, Trump's refusal to release his returns had on the actual vote. Okay, so what's the real reason Donald Trump doesn't want us to see his taxes? Well, it's pretty clear, at least to me, that Trump calculated that the damage done to him by a series of stories about his refusal to release the returns is nothing compared to what would happen if people got a look inside his actual finances. What's in there? Well, for a long time, people assumed that his returns would show Trump is less wealthy than he always says he is, which they might. Others said the returns might reveal ties to Russian oligarchs or banks that would fuel the idea that Trump was somehow influenced or beholden to a foreign power, which they might. But, given the Times reporting, Trump's release return reluctance could well be based on this simple fact. They would show that his financial success was almost entirely premised on a giant safety net made of money and built by his father. On Wednesday morning, Trump himself tweeted this, quote, "The failing New York Times did something I have never seen done before. They used the concept of time value of money in doing a very old, boring, and often told hit piece on me. Added up, this means that 97% of their stories on me are bad. Never recovered from bad election call," which, as you'll note, is not a denial. Okay, back on tax day 2018, you remember it was April 17th, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said that Trump had filed an extension for his 2017 returns, quote, "as do many Americans with complex returns." Sanders added that Trump will file his extensions by the October 15th deadline, which is coming up. But don't hold your breath. Trump has kept his taxes a secret for this long for a reason. And that reason very well may be that his successes were fueled and financed by his father's money. That's, of course, an American story as old as the founding of the country. It's just a lot less inspiring than the version Trump has told for his entire adult life. And that is the point.
Yeah, I love actually playing that. It's actually a very, maybe a 6 or 4 or 5 month period piece. Still makes sense though, because at this point, how can we sit there and say that Trump himself, always touting himself to be a successful businessman, which we know that isn't true, always sat there and said he had to struggle with $1 million loan that his father gave him, which was obvious. At the same time, every business this man has had has failed, or is in scams, or is getting sued, whether by workers or by people that actually bought into it. Because let's be honest, how many of y'all actually remember Trump Steaks? Trump Steaks, Trump Airlines, Trump University. I can keep going down the list, but pretty much every one of them was a failed business. And we shouldn't be surprised by this, considering the fact that he's actually filed for bankruptcy 7 times. So that piece about him, and pretty much you are spending your father's money kind of ideal, doesn't really surprise me more as far as that goes. But again, just always fun to play, just for all those who are in denial. But moving right along, some really sad news that we're coming up on, guys, is just that with this, as we're still, because people forget, we're still detaining immigrants and separating kids from their families. Still, we're still doing the modern day concentration camps, as a lot of people are starting to notice, but I think a lot of people are forgetting. And in this case, another child has actually died in the care of Border Patrol. So just a heads up. It's kind of graphic about this video, guys, so viewer discretion advised.
The 16-year-old was in Border Patrol custody for 6 days and died after just 6 days in their custody. He was diagnosed with the flu and had a 103-degree fever, but rather than being taken to the hospital, he was quarantined. Now, this new video raises questions as to whether Border Patrol agents did enough to keep the teen from dying in their custody. We have to warn you before you see this video. Some of you may find it disturbing.
These are the final moments of life for 16-year-old Guatemalan migrant Carlos Hernandez Vasquez. The video is not only disturbing to watch, it calls into question the official narrative released by Border Patrol after the teen's death in May. The security footage was first obtained by the investigative team at ProPublica. In the surveillance video from the early morning hours of May 20th, the Guatemalan teen, who was diagnosed with the flu and 103-degree fever, can be seen inside his cell at a Border Patrol station in Weslaco, Texas. Timestamps have been added by ProPublica. At 1:20 a.m., Vasquez is seen laying on a concrete bench, appearing to be in pain. 4 minutes later, he collapses on the floor, face down, clutching a Mylar blanket. After more than 10 minutes, and with seemingly no one responding, the teen picks himself up and appears to prop himself against a toilet inside the cell. His feet can be seen flailing for minutes before the video abruptly ends at 1:47 a.m. According to welfare check records obtained by ProPublica, Border Patrol says an agent checked on Vasquez 3 times over the next 4.5 hours. The log does not indicate how those checks were done. At 5:48 a.m., the video begins again. Officials did not provide an explanation for the gap. Vasquez still hasn't moved. In an official press release by Border Patrol, the agency says Vasquez was found unresponsive during a welfare check, but video shows it isn't until Vasquez's cellmate wakes up that anyone realizes something is wrong. Several agents are then seen tending to Vasquez, but it's already too late.
The video was obtained by ProPublica through local law enforcement via open records request. Customs and Border Protection has refused to release the video, but they did send us this statement, which reads, "The investigation into the death of Carlos Hernandez Vasquez is ongoing." They continue to say, while we cannot discuss specific information or details of this investigation, we can tell you the Department of Homeland Security and this agency are looking into all aspects of this case to ensure all procedures were followed.
Now,
the U.S. Navy is dealing.
That was loud. So yes, unfortunately, it's a story that shouldn't be coming. That shouldn't actually have it. That shouldn't be repeated. But apparently, it is. Another immigrant child has actually died in the care of Border Patrol. Keep in mind that is now the 4th child that we know of that has actually died in their care. To this day, I still do not understand it. If you're going to deport immigrants, cool, okay, that's fine. Why you're separating the children from them is a whole nother matter. At the same time, if you're separating the children, why are you not actually caring for them, making sure they get proper medical care, food, and adequate housing? That looks like a prison setup. I mean, you're giving these kids these aluminum foil blankets and not adequate treatment for what they need. And it's like, okay, he was showing signs of the flu. If Border Patrol was actually paying attention, he wouldn't be in a detaining holding cell. He would actually be in a hospital. And the simple fact of the matter is, yes, there was extreme negligence on behalf of the Border Patrol. And I still say that it makes no sense. Like I said, why are we still detaining children? Matter of fact, it's a modern day concentration camp. And in those concentration camps, people do die. And that the fact that children are dying, which is amazing to me, because people get bent out of shape when a dog gets killed, but yet at the same time when an immigrant child dies in the care of Border Patrol, yet that somehow goes unscathed. That's why whenever I hear about these new laws about, if that felony charges will be brought up if you harm an animal and whatnot and things of that nature. How is it that a dog has more federal protection and care under a U.S. government than a child does? That alone should tell you a lot about what we're going for in this country, and that's really fucked up if you think about it. And what's also fucked up is really these next couple stories I have next is honestly, I want the police to really explain this one, because this one still mystifies me about their actions.
Circulating around, there are shots being fired.
Our response time was less than 1.5 minutes to what was a silent holdup alarm, and our closest unit responded on foot immediately. this is what dangerous people do to get away. If people give up and are held accountable for their crimes, then we wouldn't put these many people in danger.
So the thing about that story is, basically there was a robbery that involved a jewelry store, and eventually a UPS truck was actually hijacked, and the driver was actually held at gunpoint to drive, to where eventually it became a standoff, and police traded fire with the gunman, hitting the UPS driver and a bystander in a crowded area. The one thing I don't get from this is the police action behind it. Yes, you are supposed to do preservation of life. Yes, you are supposed to take down a hostile subject, but shooting in an area of crowded drivers, especially when the UPS driver is in the middle of it, I cannot explain why an officer would go ahead and decide to discharge his firearm, knowing the fact that there's an innocent in the way. That never made any sense to me. But at the same time, you're also hitting bystanders in said area. Keep in mind, that was on an interstate. You still had cars and drivers. You still had people you still had a lot of unknown targets out there that could literally catch a bullet, because the cops may, in my opinion, may have acted just a little too harshly. I mean, it all comes down to preserve life. Every officer is told that, no matter what, preservation of life. And the simple fact of the matter is just that with that UPS driver, and I feel sorry for their family, is because it screams to me more along the lines of police negligence than actually them stopping a robbery. I mean, yeah, they robbed a jewelry store. I understand that. I understand that cops have a job. I understand that everybody itself had a responsibility in this. However, the simple fact of the matter is, cops are getting really, really, really too comfortable with going for the heat first, when they should really stop and analyze the situation. That's all I'm saying. But that's not the only time. That's the only story I have where a cop has decided to fuck up. This one fucked up just as worse. Well, there we go. There we go. Little technical difficulty.
Violation of my rights. You went into my house. You went into my home. You went into my home without being welcomed into my home.
Hello.
Hi.
So we're getting a call from your son saying you guys are kicking him out.
I've actually just got home. He has a warrant out for his arrest.
Right.
Out of
Possibly not doing court or something.
Yep, that's right. Yep, that is right.
He's calling us saying you're kicking him out of the house.
I just got home from court, like literally just walked in the house. It's been my sister, and he actually hasn't been allowed in my house because he did this the last time, and I had to do a well check because I was at work. So I did tell her not to open the door if he came back, if I'm not here. Okay, well either way, he has a warrant out for his arrest, so you guys can deal with it. Okay?
So, as a mother?
Okay, I gotta go, okay?
So I'm pretty sure I know which warrant it is. It was for the incident a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Here, I'm gonna come outside.
He's not going to flat for that.
Okay. It's not a warrant for that. It was a warrant today because he failed to show up for court. So let me explain to you, officer, what's been going on, okay? So first off, he's kicked my door down before. Okay. The whole entire thing. The other day I was at work, and I can't leave work to come and see what's going on. I have small baby children here. Okay. And he did this to my door while I was gone. So he has a warrant out for his arrest out of Adams County right now for failure to appear. And the judge specifically told me, I told her everything that happened, as I'm telling you.
Okay.
And am I kicking him out now? Yeah, he has a warrant out for his arrest. He's not welcome in my home until he gets that taken care of.
Okay.
Okay.
You can't do that.
Yes, I can. He's a fugitive. Yes, I can.
You can call. Listen.
Yes, I
listen.
can. What?
I listen to you.
Okay, what?
You can call us if he comes, but you cannot say you can't come in. And if you lock him out, he can kick your door to get in because he lives here.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you something. He may not kick my door.
Okay.
Okay?
If you lock him out, he can.
Okay, I didn't lock him out. My sister did. If he is being a havoc, well, my sister is here babysitting my children. He is not welcome here.
She needs to call us. You can't kick
Oh,
him
we
out.
did call you. We did call. We did a well check. They came. The officer came and you can check that.
Okay.
The officer came and did that. He hasn't been home since until today.
Okay.
Today he was locked out again, and the reason that he was locked out is because I wasn't home. When I'm home, then he can come.
That's not how
Okay,
this works.
that's so sad. Bye.
No, that's not how. Ma'am, listen. That is
You
not how.
need to leave out of my house.
Stop.
I am. You do not have any permission to go into my
Stop.
house. You have no permission
Stop.
to go into my house.
That's really for it.
Can you please let me go?
No, because now you're
Close
under
that
arrest.
door. Close that door. When am I under arrest
Stop.
for?
You're under. Because you just shoved me.
I did not shove you. I told you
It's
to
on
get out
video.
of my house. I told you to get.
It's on video.
You have no right to come into my home.
It's on video.
Comb my hair. You have no right to come into my home. You have absolutely no right to come into my home.
That's really for it. If you want to custody.
Get me out of these cuffs.
No, you're going to jail.
I am not going to.
You are going to jail.
Get. Get me out of
Stop.
these cuffs. Brina! 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 Open the door, Brina! And get this all on video. Brina! Get this all on
Stop.
video.
Stop pulling away from me.
I'm not pulling away from you.
So yes, as you can tell, the woman knew her rights. That the whole premise behind this, if you didn't hear it, was that she had a 17-year-old son who had a warrant out for arrest for missing court. So she decided, because she had younger children there and he was being disruptive and basically being violent, that she put him out the house. And of course, the 17-year-old decided to call the police and say that he was being kicked out of his parents' house. Of course, this officer came up and tried to ascertain the situation. The mom, who was being completely calm about the situation, decided to sit there and tell him, yes, he's got a warrant out for his arrest, and he cannot come home unless I'm home. And of course, he came back when she wasn't home, and of course, we went from there. Although the whole thing about the officer arresting her for assaulting a law enforcement officer was about as weak as his excuse of saying that yes, he can come in and kick your door in because he lives here. Think about what he just said. An officer of the law sat there and told a woman that yes, because he lives here, he can kick your door in. Yeah, like I said, it amazes me so much about law enforcement out there that they know the law. That at this point, we need to know law. I have been saying this since Jump Street. Know the laws in your county, your town, and your state. The reason why is because there are some law enforcement out there that will willfully depend on your ignorance of the law and your intimidation of them. Because even from a logical standpoint, what he told her made no sense. I mean, she knew the law better than he did. She sat there and said, yes, he missed court. Yes, you're supposed to go arrest him. Yes, he's a fugitive. Anybody who's ever had a warrant out for their arrest will probably sit there and go, yeah, she's right. Any officer who actually has enough time on force will probably sit there and go, yeah, she's right. She can deny a 17-year-old entry into her home. It's not the fact where the officer was going, well, you're his mother. And, yep, and she put him out. I can't tell you how many times my mom has threatened to put my ass out. or my siblings out. I mean, granted, she never really did it, but again, we are not surprised that she didn't do anything violent. She just sat there and took it upon herself to defend her children from danger. And the officer, of course, you just see her put her hand on the door because the officer was trying to willingly go into a home that he had no probable cause in, and he took her hand being on his arm, saying, you do not have the right to come in here. He took that as assaulting a law enforcement officer, which was pretty weak in itself. was almost as weak as, the whole idea of saying you're going to go to jail for abusing a police officer, in which, thankfully, like I always say best, if you ever get arrested or you find yourself about to be arrested, you can request for their commanding officer. Every law enforcement officer actually out there knows that if someone does request to speak to their commander, they have to honor that request. That's just a simple procedure. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be a get out of jail free card for you, but if you don't want to deal with the officer that's currently arresting you or trying to detain you, that you can request for their superior, and of course, they would come out. But again, it's not a get out of jail free card. But in her case, I give her props for staying calm throughout all of it and trying to explain to the officer in the best way possible about the situation. It was just that, again, it amazed me so that in situations when it's like this, we have to be calmer than the police, and we have to actually speak more common sense to them to make them understand when it really should be the other way around. By now, you think. But moving right along, of other things that are messed up, everybody remembers Harvey Weinstein, right? The guy that literally was the fire starter for the Me Too movement. Well, they're finally moving forward on a case.
Scene arrived earlier this morning at a lower Manhattan courthouse for a pretrial hearing. Prosecutors claim the disgraced movie mogul violated terms of his bail condition by mishandling his electronic ankle monitor and going unaccounted for hours at a time. But defense attorneys blamed poor cell service where Weinstein lives. He is currently free on $1 million bail.
The issues really are violations about the bracelet being out of range or a cell tower not being able to pick up a signal. It has nothing to do with any manipulation of a bracelet or any type of real violation or allegation.
Weinstein is facing rape and sexual assault charges. The next court hearing in the case will take.
Okay, I had to play a real quick clip because, number one, no one can still explain to me how Harvey Weinstein has yet to see a day in court, yet Bill Cosby got the fast food edition of literally being in court, tried, not found guilty, tried again, mistrial, tried again, found guilty, then put in jail. All within 2 years. Yet Harvey Weinstein has yet to see a day in court. And then at the same time, he's on house arrest. And at the same time, he messed with his ankle monitor. Because let's be honest, those suckers are hard to literally manipulate, easy to take off. But the moment you do take it off, yes, the U.S. Marshals who do those ankle monitors and track them are immediately alerted. So for him to sit there and say, well, it was just cell phone reception. No, you try to take it off. But then again, we shouldn't be surprised because we do obviously know the reason why Weinstein is free and Cosby is not. We should not be surprised by that. I just sit there and say, so the fact of the matter is that they need to go ahead and have this trial set to be done, and it should be treated with the same energy as they treated Cosby. Despite, however you may feel about the situation, it just makes no sense that two men are charged with the same crime, and yet one is in jail and one is walking free. But there seems to be one big difference as to why one is not the same. I'll let you figure that out for yourself. But moving right along, guys, like I said, getting back into the election, some strange things have happened over this week, and this tells me more about our current government and why some things need to change.
Sees Rick Klein with the latest in politics
this week. Things are getting more intense in Washington.
Don't mess with me.
And out on the campaign trail.
So you're a damn liar.
That last exchange came when an Iowa man asked former Vice President Joe Biden about business relationships involving his son.
But you, on the other hand, sent your son over there.
Biden was angry after being asked about an unsubstantiated allegation that's at the center of President Trump's impeachment inquiry. That inquiry going full steam toward an impeachment vote, to the frustration of some Democrats in the 2020 race. Now, former candidate Senator Kamala Harris cited the attention on impeachment as among the reasons behind her surprise early dropout.
In good faith, I cannot tell you, my supporters and volunteers, that I have a path forward if I don't believe I do.
Harris's exit could provide an opening to other candidates. Former HUD Secretary Julian Castro and Senator Cory Booker both using her withdrawal to argue that they should make the cut at the next debate.
It is a problem that we now have an overall campaign for the 2020 presidency that has more billionaires in it than black people.
Candidates only have a few more days to qualify for the next Democratic debate coming up in Los Angeles. 6 presidential hopefuls are in, and as of now, despite the unprecedented diversity in the Democratic field, none of them are minorities.
And that shouldn't be surprising, guys, because they're starting to treat the Democratic primary pretty much like America's top model. Biden needs to retire. I'm sorry. Biden doesn't need to run. You wonder why? Because just similar to Kamala Harris, who dropped out earlier this week, for reasons with Biden, he just doesn't. I mean, number one, he's too old, and number two, he literally doesn't like answering the same question over and over again. He will be constantly hounded because Trump will sit there and still tout about his son's dealings in Ukraine. He will always be hounded, whether or not it's done by people in a town hall or whether it's done in the next presidential debate. It's going to be brought up. If Biden doesn't simply know how to, get around it or just be able to answer it to where it doesn't turn around and become this whole thing of you're a damn liar, the straight, you stop being presidential and you start being grumpy old men. And I think Biden is starting to do that because, I'm sorry, it's not like President Obama. President Obama got hounded with the same questions. Are you a Kenyan? Are you a Muslim? Are you really an American? Where's your birth certificate? Did you really go to Harvard? Keep in mind, he had to deal with that for his entire 2 terms. Not just when he was running for president for the first time. Even after he was president. Even after his 2nd term. I guarantee there are still some people out there, if you look hard enough, will still believe that he's a Kenyan Muslim who worships the Quran. I wish I could make that up. But at the same time, President Obama handled it quite well. I mean, he almost got to the point to where it's like, damn, this man can could walk through a slide of paper in a snowstorm. But that was a former president. You now look at Biden now, and it's just like, dude, I've never wanted so bad to sit there and tell somebody, you had a good run as vice president, not as a president, even though he's still leading in some polls in certain battleground states. Another thing about that is, like I said, they were explaining about Nancy Pelosi. Again, one of those, when she was asked a question, they were saying, well, don't mess. It's like, don't mess with me. It's like, I don't hate anybody. Don't mess with me. Again, the whole threatening thing. I'm like, when did we stop actually being professional and just decide to go the Donald Trump route? And pretty much say whatever is on our head, say whatever is on our heart, and not think about with no filter. I'm not saying Nancy Pelosi needs to go, although I've been saying that she does need to step down as chairman of the House, as a minority leader. She does need to step down. I still think, for the simple fact of the matter is just that, there are plenty of other Congress people like AOC or Ilhan Omar and those out there who can step in and actually fill that void. But I'm starting to think that some of the old guard needs to go. And concerning the next presidential candidate, Democratic debate, I should say, for the simple fact of the matter is that it's going to come to a point to where we got to start weeding people out. For some odd reason, Tubli Gibbard is still there, and I'm trying to figure that one out because she literally has no poll to stand on. Cory Booker is still there. Again, I don't know where this man stands on. Andrew Yang, which at this point, who isn't really, he is connecting somewhat, but at the same time, he's a voice that's getting lost in the mix. And at this point, it all comes down to literally Warren, Sanders, and somehow Biden. I don't know how, even though Mayor Buttigieg is starting to be more known now. But the simple fact of the matter is they're not actually going, for a lot of the voters out there, mostly the minorities, we're more familiar with Warren and Sanders than we are with anybody else. And again, we really should be surprised just because we do have a lack of actual accountability and responsibility there. Just because, everybody looked at Kamala Harris and I'm like, yeah, she could have been it. But again, she simply was not ready. And there's going to be a lot of that going around as we start getting down to the final top 4. I feel like I'm watching American Idol every time I watch Democratic debate sometimes. But moving right along, guys, we do actually have another story of where, again, I've always sat there and said, politics and corruption and money kind of go hand in hand. But until all of them are being removed, we'll still find those guys who just can't ignore the temptation of money. Well, we shouldn't be surprised by this one guy coming out of California.
With new explosive claims against Congressman Duncan Hunter. Prosecutors are accusing the California Republican of living a secret life and illegally using campaign money to finance it.
Hunter has already been charged for misusing campaign funds, and as we hear from Kira Phillips, the new charges against him will focus on alleged affairs.
Explosive new accusations against embattled California Congressman Duncan Hunter. Federal prosecutors claiming he used campaign funds as a personal piggy bank to finance affairs with multiple congressional staffers and lobbyists. Alleging Hunter used political donations to pay for alcohol, an illicit getaway to Lake Tahoe, golf outings, and Uber rides to carry out, quote, romantic liaisons. Hunter and his wife were indicted last August, accused of conspiring to misuse $250,000 of campaign funds for a range of personal expenses, including lavish vacations and plane tickets for Egbert, their pet rabbit. Hunter has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, at one point appearing to blame his wife.
She handled my finances throughout my entire military career, and that continued on when I got into Congress. She was also the campaign manager, so whatever she did on that'll be looked at too, I'm sure. But I didn't do it.
Earlier this month, Hunter's wife pled guilty to one count of conspiracy and agreed to work with prosecutors, potentially setting the stage for her to testify against her husband later this year. Kira Phillips, ABC.
Jesus H. Christ, that sounds more like a story. That sounds more like a Law and Order episode than an actual event. But yes, again, another congressman who used campaign funds the wrong way and almost sounded like an evil James Bond villain because him and his wife flew around their pet rabbit. I mean, I kept expecting him to turn around with the rabbit like like a James Bond villain, really. And of course, I love the fact of how they try to say romantic liaisons, hookups. Just call them hookups. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any difference. He cheated on his wife, obviously, and his wife fleeced the campaign. I mean, they lived off the high life, and now they got caught. It really shouldn't be surprised that now. He threw his wife under the bus on national television. His wife's about to sing on him like a canary in court. It is literally and seriously, it is almost the equivalent to Scandal, the actual television show, by the way. And it just makes no sense to it. It's that at this point, we really not should be surprised about the level of influence and lobbying. And the simple fact of the matter is that I've always said before, you don't have to be a professional athlete or entertainer to make a lot of money in America. Just be a politician. I'm serious. They give you money anyway. And of course, lobbying, I said before, itself should be outlawed. It should be outlawed, and it should never actually be allowed to flourish. At the same time, until lobbying is outlawed in the same sense of Citizens United and things of that nature, until those things are overturned, unfortunately, those things are just going to remain. Although it's just funny, although I just watched that story again, it was just amazing to me how in the world that it sounded like something out of a Law and Order episode. I was expecting a murder to actually happen somewhere in between there, to be honest with you. But moving right along, guys, let me go ahead and get into former UN ambassador and governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, who decided to say something completely stupid and utterly asinine. To this point, still makes me scratch my head.
It was just horrible. 12 people who went and did what so many South Carolinians do every Wednesday night. They went to Bible study. But on this night, someone else showed up. And he didn't look like them. He didn't act like them. He didn't sound like them. And they didn't throw him out. They didn't call the cops. They pulled up a chair and they prayed with him for an hour. And when they bowed their heads in that last prayer, he began to shoot. I mean, South Carolina fell to her knees when this happened. This is one of the oldest African-American churches. These 12 people were amazing people. They loved their church. They loved their family. They loved their community. And here is this guy that comes out with his manifesto holding the Confederate flag and had just hijacked everything that people thought of. And we don't have hateful people in South Carolina. There's always the small minority that's always going to be there. But, people saw it as service and sacrifice and heritage. But once he did that, there was no way to overcome it.
Yes, I wish I could make that up. I really wish I could. Yes, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley just defended the Confederate flag and said it was seen as an act of service. It was seen as heritage. And yet she says Dylan Roof. She didn't even say Dylan Roof's. I think I have to go back and look at it. I don't think she said Dylan Roof's name. I think she said he went in there and hijacked it. Number one, you really can't hijack a battle flag, especially a battle flag that was pretty much against a formed union at the time that really just didn't want to conform. But, for a lot of people that want to hang on to the Confederate flag, that say it's heritage and whatnot, I secretly think you want to hang on to racism. That's just me. But at the same time, I couldn't sit there. I couldn't sit there with a straight face interviewing her and saying, "Are you really believing the shit you're saying right now?" For so fact of the matter is just like, you're going to sit there and say, and speaking on historic African American church in South Carolina, you took it upon yourself to sit there and try to Caucasian explain that yes, the flag isn't bad, but he used the flag in such a way that it just really disrupted what we're about in South Carolina. And I love it. She says, we don't have hateful people in South Carolina. Yeah, you do. We have hateful people in Tennessee. I can tell you that off the bat. It's not a small number, and it's always funny they try to downplay that. It's not a small number. It's a rather large number, because as much as you don't want to say it, there are a lot of people out there who still believe that the South had it right. Who still believe that. And that alone should be scary enough that she's sitting there. And keep in mind, this was someone that we were sending to the United Nations. No wonder they're fucking laughing at us. But really shouldn't be surprised by that. And thank God she's not in office anymore. But Trump always hires the best. I always hire the best people. Yeah, that's why you have so many resignations and indictments and arrests in an administration that has been seen since the likes of Dixon. But what do I know? But speaking of Trump, the last nail in the coffin that he did this week really doesn't make any sense, because again, this takes away from families.
Nearly 700,000 people in this country are on the verge of losing their food stamps. The Trump administration is tightening work requirements for adults who don't have children. The new rule requires 20 hours of work a week. It's set to take effect April 1st. USDA officials say the rule change will save roughly $5.5 billion over 5 years.
Yes, Trump decided to basically out-Trump himself. For those that are, a lot of us are actually on the, if I can find words, that'd be great. A lot of us are actually on family assistance, food stamps, things of that nature. Nothing wrong with that. We all need help in life. But now, nearly 700,000 people are about to lose that because of new work requirements. Now, I will sit there and say this above all else. There is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with needing assistance, because the way our jobs are going, the way income gaps are increasing, the way everything is going up at your paycheck. And the simple fact of the matter is, more people have to turn around and take on additional jobs, more hours, side jobs, side hustles, things of that nature, all to just basically make it, really. I can't knock people for that. In the same sense where I can see that, yeah, if you need food stamps, you need to work. And here's the age-old argument that I will keep pointing out. I will keep pointing out, for the simple fact of the matter is just that it amazes me so, that the same people are saying, well, if you're not working, you shouldn't be eating. But you're not addressing the working part. I mean, you're not. Think about this for a second. This is the reason why things like Fight for 15 campaigns are out there, because for a lot of people, the food and services industry, for a lot of people, may be the only way for them to make income. But you can't pay the rent on $9 to $10 an hour. You can't. Rent almost everywhere these days is almost getting closer to that $900, $1,000 a month range. It really is. It's going to get to the point to where I'm almost going to call it. It's going to get to the point, unless something changes within the next 2 years, that rent anywhere is going to be $1,000 a month. Think about that for a second. Rent anywhere in the U.S. could possibly be over $1,000 a month in the next 2 years. Yet our minimum wage is still $7.25. It's been that way since 2009. A decade later, we still have the same wages. It's amazing why a decade later, we still can't have the same prices on the majority of things that we enjoy. But apparently I'm nuts. So again, when it comes to the whole thing of the work requirement, it's almost like the drug testing. A while back, they talked about, well, you need to be drug tested if you want food stamps. What point is that going to prove? If that's the case, let's drug test Congress. I'm pretty sure a lot of them are going to fail. But at the same time, you're not giving a clear idea of how you're going to help with jobs, or better yet, how you're going to help with income. Because like I said on the previous podcast, automation is going to come around, and I think it's going to take away a lot of the jobs that a lot of people are doing. And I think for the simple fact of the matter is just that it's going to have to eventually be addressed. But you don't address a problem by putting on something and saying, well, anybody can find a job. No. What you meant to know, what people don't understand is, yes, you can find a job, but you can't find a job. But it's getting to the point to these days, unless you're in business for yourself, unless your family has done well, or unless you have assets or things of that nature, you don't survive. You can barely get by out here on just having a single job, unless that job is high paying. Other people have, like I said before, other people take on part-time and side jobs, side hustles just to get along. But nobody under the 95K line is going to sit there and say, yes, my one job sustains everything I need. It's just not going to happen. So how does it relate to food stamps? Quit putting requirements on food stamps. For the simple fact of the matter is, the only requirement should be is that I don't have enough to pay the rent and have food, or I don't have enough to pay the rent and take care of my son or my kids' expenses. That should be the requirement. Not to the fact of the matter is, are you working? That to me is just asinine. But speaking of asinine, as you probably noticed if you have elderlies in your family, or those who are just now entering the AARP stage, they are probably going to be thinking about doing Medicare Part A and Part B. Being that I have a little bit of history with that, it is a pain in the ass to see how much they are actually requiring senior citizens to actually get that. Even more so now that there will be increases. Which again, this comes to the simple fact, before you say Obamacare, this isn't Obamacare. This is actually our current government at work. So basically, if you have people that are on Medicare Part B, which is pretty much for things that are covered, their premiums may actually go up another $9.10 a month. Deductibles will actually increase by $13. And of course, if you have Medicare Part A along with it, you'll actually see an increase of $44 as far as the hospital deductibles, which was actually raising from $25 from the year prior. Which again, this pretty much is supposed to be the cost of living adjustment, basically that is affecting. Now, for all those that don't know what that means that pretty much the cost of living basically is judging someone's Social Security benefits versus what they're actually getting as far as government assistance. And trust me, people get screwed. They really do. And the thing about Medicare Part A and Part B, what they cover, because you probably hear Part D. Part D is prescription. What Part A covers pretty much hospital and nursing facilities and home health care. So if you have hospice in the home and things of that nature, that's what Medicare Part A covers. Part B actually covers physician services, medical equipment, and things you might need in the home, and other things that are not covered by Part A. So for all those that don't know, just give me a quick medical lesson. Part A, hospital. Part B, pretty much physician services and outpatient things. And from there, it just becomes a convoluted mess. But I've always sat there and said, when it comes to convoluted messes, that is the American healthcare system, because it is a for-profit business, and that's the fucking problem. Speaking of businesses that literally want to turn around and, how can I say, help? Because we've always said it best, sometimes you do need to have a physician on site that can help out, especially if you're sick, got headaches, things of that nature. Well, Chipotle thought about doing that, and just not in the way people think. For instance, they decided that they wanted to have a nurse on call to ensure that workers are really sick and not just hungover. So According to its CEO, they sat there and said that we have nurses on call, so that if you say, hey, I've been sick, you get the call to go into the nurse. And then the nurse validates that it's not a hangover and that you're really sick, and that we will pay for the day off for you to get healthy again. Think about what I just said, folks. Chipotle now has a nurse that employees have to call into when they say that they've been sick, and the nurse has to validate whether or not you're hungover, which could depend on whether you get would you get a paid day off or an unpaid day off. And for a lot of business owners, I can see where they're going to sit there and say, yes, that's a wonderful idea. And I'm just like, so the way that you actually take care of your workers is to have a physician validate them to whether they be sick or not. Now, I'm not saying that I understand the whole ramifications of it all, and I'm not sitting there saying that there's not going to be some sort of step-by-step diagnosis, which I don't know how you can do that over the phone. I just think that it's a little intrusive a way to actually ensure that your workers are really sick. I mean, most people just take the word on it. And granted, you have sick days in most areas, but at the same time, how in the blue hell can you sit there and say as a Chipotle worker that this makes sense? Because now it's almost like if you call in sick, it's like now I have to sit there and convince another person that I'm sick in order to get paid. And trust me, if you got sick days, you might as well use them because you don't get them back. Same way in the PTO days. But I just thought that was fucked up about Chipotle. But then again, this is the same place that had an E. coli outbreak about 3 years ago, and I've never ate at the place. So take it how you will. But before we get to our last parts of our podcast, guys, I just want to basically talk about what this one city is doing with apartment security deposits. Because as you can see for myself, I am in an apartment, and if you've ever lived in an apartment, you probably have done these three things. You have probably paid an application fee, which is probably too damn much. You've probably paid a security deposit, which again, you have to do it because apparently in their way that you have to secure the apartment. And then you paid the first month rent, which, you know, we all had to jump through that hoop. But as, like I said before, I was speaking about when it came back to the food stamps, is that the cost of everything is going up. But it amazes me so that even apartment rent, personally, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, which unfortunately is starting to become more and more fucking crowded because they are actually having land developers from outside the state come in and buy up land and then just put up apartments at New York rent. I wish I could make that up, but it's actually true. But as that's going along, security deposits are coming across, and this one city is actually doing something different to see what happens, and I thought this was pretty cool. And I thought that was pretty cool. The simple fact of the matter is that the city of Cincinnati is trying out a new program. Instead of asking for a security deposit, they are actually requiring pretty much just renter's insurance to cover it, equal to what the deposit will be. Now, for most apartment complexes, they usually ask for an insurance, a renter's insurance that secures at least $10,000 or whatever worth that you actually have of things in your apartment. I thought that was a cool idea just because it takes away the security deposit. It's almost like saying, okay, I don't need to pay it, but I got the insurance in case shit goes down. I mean, anybody who's paying renter's insurance, it's what, $5-8 a month at best. So I like the fact that it's taking away some of the high cost of living, although for the simple fact of the matter is what truly does need to be addressed is that why is rent so fucking high? Why won't banks actually help out as far as mortgages and things of that nature? And you think for a simple fact of the matter is that they would be trying to put us in more houses and not apartments, not trying to corral us in there. But hey, I digress. I guess that's the way some things are, that when it comes to profit and pretty much trying to get people to do shit, that's the way things are. But kind of hoping what happens with Cincinnati just to see where it goes, because I'm very curious about it and just seeing exactly what can be done. And that's why I'm kind of semi-hopeful. It's almost like the freedom dividend that Andrew Yang tried to do, that he just, I don't know if he flaked out on it or whatnot, but I still think it's a great idea and just really waiting to see what happens from it next. But that's pretty much all the stories that we have, so we're just going to get to our feel-good news segment, because I don't know how the frack we got here. We do cover a lot of things that could be funny, could be messed up, could be very dark, and you don't want that for a weekend, as we try to do this every Saturday. We will leave you out on a good note. Try to have you feeling good, because some of y'all may be off, some of y'all may be working, and if you are working, hopefully it'll be a quick shift for you. But I did find these 4 stories that I thought were actually cool, because usually I find 2 or 3, but I lucked out this week and actually found 4 more. And I thought this first story was pretty cool, because I always love seeing people, despite their age, are still active, and that the knowledge they share. And this woman is no exception.
For Ida Keeling, this was no ordinary birthday party. The students at this New York City after-school program helped the centenarian celebrate her 104 and a half birthday.
I've never met anyone that's actually even lived up to 100 years old.
How does it feel to be invited guests at an event that is honoring you?
Oh, I thought it was wonderful.
To date, the athlete known as Miss Ida holds 7 world records.
In lane 3, here is Ida Keeling,
including the fastest 100-meter by anyone over the age of 100.
Gonna lean at the finish line. That is a winner.
But it was tragedy that sparked Miss Ida's passion to run. Her 2 sons were murdered years apart from one another, sending Miss Ida into a deep depression.
She was sad all of the time, and I was desperate.
Miss Ida's daughter, Shelley, turned to exercise to help her then 67-year-old mother heal.
I went to her and said, Mom, I want you to run. I want you to go on this mini run with me. That mini run was actually a 5K. She says that when she was running, she felt like she was coming up out of a hole. And that was the beginning of the story that we now know as Ida Keeling.
Today, the Miss Ida story continues. In her memoir, Can't Nothing Bring Me Down, she recounts growing up poor in Harlem and being a single mother during the Great Depression.
You are living proof, can't nothing bring you down, which is amazing. What advice do you have for those who are healing, whether it's mentally or physically?
You got to love you. Enjoy you. That's your body, and you're responsible for it.
While this athlete may not run like she used to, she has no plans of slowing down.
Hello, Miss Ida.
She proved it by showing me her daily stretch and push-up routine.
You're strong. I right now have the front row ticket to whatever your secret is, your secret to longevity and aging beautifully. What's your favorite exercise?
Oh, I love to dance.
So you like to do a little dancing. What is your go-to food?
We start off with oatmeal and prunes.
What do you drink the most now?
Oh, I say most anything. Right now, I have a little Henny.
Henny, I love that.
And sometimes she'll take the little Henny in her coffee.
So you go from oatmeal to whiskey.
You don't have to overdo everything.
While Miss Ida has many secrets to longevity, it's her boundless energy that continues to inspire others, like the kids at her birthday party.
Even though she is 104 and a half, she's still running, and I feel like that's really hard to do.
She just keeps on going and she doesn't stop.
If she can do it, you can do it. We think that you are just a great inspiration. Yes. Happy birthday, Miss Ida!
is so.
At that point, at 104, you can't make no excuses. 104 still running, world record holder, and her secret to longevity, a little bit of Henny. Who knew? Alcohol. But I thought that was pretty cool. I love the simple fact of, whether it's a black person or not, but I'm always a little bit more inspired by that. That's just me. That's just my opinion. But it's just interesting to watch these people as they age older, and they're still able to do things. I mean, you just saw a 104 woman doing push-ups. I've seen 75-year-old men in the gym still bench press more than me. And at that point, I'm like, I have no excuse whatsoever not to be productive and work out the way I should. So I love the fact of her whole thing of taking care of her body and putting things of that nature, and also having a little bit of Henny just because, anything is possible. The next story I have here, not really a video, but I love the fact that what this woman did is that she had a son who she wanted to read a Christmas story to, but she didn't find one that actually mirrored something that her son can relate to, being that her son is black. So she takes it upon herself to create this Christmas book that is now actually being sold in stores, called In the Nick of Time, in which she basically writes it about her son, and simple fact of the thing of Christmas, and think of it as a little coming of age story. And I get the fact of why she did it, just because, again, for a lot of parents out there, because I myself am not a parent, I can only call myself an uncle, it's just that when a parent out there, you want to have things that your son or daughter, or sons and daughters, or how many children you may have, you want them to be able to relate to it. And the simple fact of the matter is, in a Christmas story like that, let's be honest, a lot of Christmas stories that you see out there, outside of Die Hard, because I still say Die Hard is still a Christmas movie. It's just not for kids. You want to find something that can be related to. And in that case, I just thought that was pretty cool that she took it upon herself with the purpose of just creating a book for her son that can relate to, but now it's actually sold on Amazon. It's called In the Nick of Time. I actually will probably be purchasing that book just because I want to share that with my nieces and nephews to give them something that they can relate to around this Christmas holiday. Because, it's not about presents, it's actually just about being around each other and celebrating life and things of that nature. And so the fact of the matter, that's a pagan holiday that Christians sometimes forget about. Anyway, aside from that, guys, speaking of Christmas, I have another feel-good story where it's just, you know what? This is how I know there are some people out there with a giving heart and a shitload of money, and the way they do it is awesome, and I have to give this man credit. So you've probably seen this story, or probably not, but it's news to you.
Among his many talents, Steve Hartman really knows how to keep a secret. In tonight's On the Road, he catches up with a mysterious holiday helper who's out to make the season bright.
Good morning, how you doing?
To many passengers,
hey, come here for 1 second.
This was like boarding a bus.
Today I'm working for Secret Santa.
To Crazy Town.
Somebody said Secret Santa. I says, what? This is a dream or something.
But this was no dream. It's real. These were real elves working for the real Secret Santa.
Merry Christmas.
Secret Santa is an anonymous wealthy businessman who every year travels the country giving out $100, $200, sometimes $300
No.
Yeah. To random strangers.
It's impossible. This is impossible.
It is possible. It's true.
He usually finds his targets in thrift stores.
Thank you so much.
But this year,
I'm Secret Santa.
Secret Santa recruited some elves from the Milwaukee County Transit System to do at least some of his giving.
We're here because of you.
He chose the Milwaukee drivers because they're always doing kind deeds. Whether it's stopping the bus to fetch a pair of lost children's shoes, helping a turtle cross the street, or rescuing a child out wandering alone, there is a real culture of kindness here, which Secret Santa says makes them perfect accomplices.
We're going to be on the biggest sleigh we've ever had, and the magic is going to be like gold dust flying across the city.
I'm working for Secret Santa, and you are the luckiest people in the world.
For the rest of the day,
This is for you.
5 different drivers gave out thousands of dollars worth of $100 bills.
Thank you, man. God is good.
No doubt, the money was appreciated. But as always, this was about so much more than money. A Benjamin can't buy this much euphoria. No, what overwhelmed most people was the unconditional kindness.
Happy holidays.
And as for the drivers, who rarely get hugs, it affected them almost as much as the passengers.
It was a great experience. Like, it's going to stick with me the rest of my life.
Yes. It was awesome to be part of something so big.
If you ever feel down, if you ever feel a little depressed and you want to solve your problem, go out and do something kind for somebody, because when you do that, you're uplifting yourself.
Give me a hug.
Next stop, best holiday ever. Steve Hartman.
You know, at this point, I'm starting to believe Santa is real. Well, by the way, if your kids just watched that, ignore what I just said. But I do love the fact of that whole thing was literally a guy who apparently has a shitload of money, has decided to basically give back. And it's like he did it in this way where it's just like, imagine a guy is walking up to you and saying, hey, here's $100 for being you. I mean, we're not going to question it because, hey, the money's real. Hey, man, appreciate it, and move right along. And I love the fact that he tried to actually do this with different people. And as you can tell from the story there, it's been well received. Because let's be honest, we could all use a little bit of help right now. We could all use a Secret Santa or a Sugar Mama. One of the, well, not, you heard what I mean, you know what I mean. But with that being said, it's just that it really is a cool story as far as that goes. It's amazing to never show this guy's face. I mean, this guy has a better masking of identity than Batman at this rate, because we keep hearing about these Secret Santas, and I just think to myself, I get the fact you don't want the public attention, because Lord knows if I ever came up to a shitload of money and I wanted to do that, I am finding something to protect my identity when I'm doing it. Now, it might not be Santa. I might, I can't do Spider-Man. I'm 6'2" and 200 something, almost nearly. Well, I'm losing weight, so I can't say 300 anymore. But I can't be a big ass Spider-Man. So I would do something that's kind of height appropriate. I mean, I can do Batman, but everybody that knows me knows I love Batman. So me go around in a Batman suit handing out money, it's gonna be like, it's Will. I'm like, shit. And then, then I'm just giving out money in public. I got to do something that, what I would do? For all those that watch Watchmen, I will go around as Rorschach. That's what I'll do. Because nobody will be able to figure that one out. And depending on your level of you've watched Watchmen or not, you will never figure out that character. I'll just be a guy with a sock on his head and a full trench coat handing out money. You're not going to question it, but you'll be thankful and hug me anyway. I'm going to go with that if I ever do get that high up in money. But one more story I do have, which I thought was pretty cool. Again, I love celebrating kids when they do accomplish great things, and this story is honestly no different.
Chess players are not typically treated to loud cheers and pep rallies, but state champion chess teams also don't typically come from small Catholic schools in the Auburn-Gresham neighborhood. But St. Ethelreda is number one. 3 girls on the team placed in the top 10.
We've always thought we were the best team, but now that we have the trophy as proof, chess, all chess, no running, no nothing, sitting down, looking at a board, figuring out what's the best move.
The state championship trophy will take its place in the trophy case with others the school has earned for sports teams. It's a great accomplishment for St. Ethelreda, which a decade ago was on the verge of being closed because of low enrollment. But Principal Denise Spells has helped rally the community, and enrollment has stabilized.
It's what you do in the school to build a community of family, community of love, a community of believers, students who believe that they can conquer the world if they set their minds to it.
The state tournament in Peoria last month brought schools from all over to the tables, and for these girls who have been playing chess for most of their young lives, it was a great test and also a confidence builder. But this celebration with their classmates might be the most unforgettable.
How does it feel to be state champion?
Feels awesome.
It was amazing, just to see all of those people come out and support the team in that way and just tell the kids, good job, and keep it up. That was it was wonderful.
Unlike many Catholic schools, St. Ethelreda is not connected to a church, but they say they have the full support of the community, and today that community is celebrating their success.
And again, that's pretty cool. The simple fact of the matter is that an all-girls chess team literally took the state title, and I myself like chess. I'm not that good. I'm still kind of learning some parts of it all. But I still love it. It's still an interesting game. I just love to see kids their age be considered state chess masters at that point. It's just honestly really awesome, and I mean, hats off to them. You definitely gotta sit there and celebrate when a child. You definitely gotta sit there and celebrate when a child actually accomplishes a lot and just really goes from there. And for the simple fact of the matter, I mean, great job. But anyway, that's going to be the end of our podcast this week, guys. So thank you, everybody who's watching. Really appreciate it. I know we kind of ran a little bit long. It's only because I wanted to cover a lot of stories around the time. And for the simple fact of the matter, it's just that I always try to catch as much as I can as far as trying to bring you at least a different perspective from what you see from the news. So let me always say thank you to everybody's watch, like, share, subscribe, let people know about it, things of that nature. So before I get out of here, I do got to do some shameless plugging, and I do mean shameless because as anybody that knows me, I am very shameless when I come to talking about things. I am not the only cat out here that we have in our group of table bosses that has podcasts. I'll start with Vaughn, A.Weatherspoon on Facebook, BZA on YouTube. Has several podcasts of his own. The first one he has is the VSTs. The VST is a podcast about news. That news can be music, that news can be video games, that news can be movie trailers. A very interactive show just like mine. He also has Rhythm Disc, where you can reminisce over the rhythm, in which he goes over albums previous and now present to a 4-tier rating system. If you want to know what that 4-tier rating system is, you have to watch Rhythm Disc to find out. He also has Random Spuck with Uncle VZ. What is Random Spuck? Random Spuck is the basically the pool of ratchetness we sometimes dip our toes into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Some videos make you think, some videos make you cry, some videos will just have you wondering a lot. My personal favorite to this day that's still on WorldStarHipHop.com, Burger King on Fire. You will not be disappointed. But anyway, if you go to his Facebook, Facebook, A.Weatherspoon, you'll be able to see a calendar of his podcast when he goes live, which will be on Facebook and on YouTube and sometimes on Mixer. Also, some other buddy of mine who's not in the room right now, but he will be on later, hopefully, will be Thomas Reed, a.k.a. the Mountain Puncher. That's what we call him, because he is a guy about fitness. If you've seen Thomas before, which is basically Thomas Reed on Facebook, he is a guy that has I won't say unhealthy relationship with the gym. I will just say highly attentive. Yeah, a highly attentive relationship with the gym. But he does love to talk about fitness, loves to talk about workouts, loves to talk about nutrition, things to do, and really just give his personal view of things in the gym. Like that trainer that's just too close to women when they're doing squats. Yes, we're talking about you. But his podcast to be determined, which is every Saturday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Facebook Live. Just look up Thomas Reed on Facebook and you go from there. And also his YouTube page, which is the number 2, the letter T, the letter B, the letter D. That is 2TBD on YouTube to basically view it there as well. My other bud from a different mother, Trace Brown, King Eddie Wayne on Facebook, DJ King Eddie Wayne on YouTube, has 2 podcasts of his own. He first has The Bump Down, which is music, culture, knowledge, and numbers, in which he goes over what's hot on the charts and on the underground and artists that are upcoming and what he believes will be the next big thing. Also, if you are an upcoming artist that does want their music to be played on The Bump Down or Vaughn's Rhythm Disc, please reach out to Trace or to Vaughn on Facebook and they'll give you the details on how to submit your music. We only ask that you bring that fire because we want you to show off your best work. Leading from The Bump Down, Trace also goes into The Smoke of Truth, which is the unorthodox Check Your Door podcast, because I have said this many times about Trace. Trace is a very unorthodox individual, but he's a highly intelligent individual, and he brings a unique perspective to most conversations that haven't really been fair to tread. But if you're that person that can sit there and go that far, then the Smoke Truth podcast is for you, because Trace always wants all the smoke. And finally, my other buddy, Wingnut Gaming, has a gaming channel on Facebook. What is Wingnut Gaming? Is my buddy Wingnut, who I've known for a number of years, who loves first-person shooters. He loves Apex Legends. He loves World of Warcraft. He loves Call of Duty. He loves Battlefield 5. Well, probably not so much now since the last update. But he loves to be social and loves to play with people online. And I've played with him a few times on Apex Legends. But he is a guy that just simply wants to make more friends and basically just have a good old time. And and really just wants to be able just to grow as a gamer. But if you actually want to look him up, just look at Winged Gaming on Facebook and like, share, subscribe from there. And also for myself, of course, the How the Frack We Got Here is always every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon. Also for me, and also later on tonight will be the Off Limits podcast, which will be from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Also on Facebook Live and YouTube. And on Saturday. On Sunday, from 8 to 10 p.m., I do have my other podcast, what I'll have with Mountain Puncher called Get Bit. What is Get Bit? Get Bit is our Nerd and Blurred podcast in which we cover everything from sci-fi to Comic-Con to cosplay and things of that nature. We just want to bring a blurred perspective to things that are already out there, and just like to discuss that because, as you can tell from last Sunday, we had a lot to cover that we try to cover in an hour. But Get Bit will actually be this Sunday as well, and all my shows can be found under my name on YouTube, on Facebook, which is William Buchanan, or on YouTube, which if you look up How the Frack We Got Here, off of its podcast, or Get Bit, that is Get as in G-I-T, Bit, B-I-T, because I tried to do a play on words and it failed horribly. But Get Bit, How the Frack We Got Here, and Off Limits all have their own YouTube pages, so you'll be able to like, share, and subscribe from there. So, last thing I'll sit there and say is, guys, that if you like what I see, if you like I said, like more, thank you everybody that's watching, because I see people hopping in and out. Now, like I said, we all got busy lives and whatnot. I am not knocking it. I appreciate every one of you guys for at least giving me a second of your day, because I know time is precious, and I highly appreciate that. So, if you like what you saw, please let me know. If you didn't like what you saw, please let me know. I take open criticism because it's all about trying to curtail this and perfect this to where you guys can actually enjoy it or engage in it and things of that nature. It's all about opening your mind, which is all I'm trying to do. So I take it all I take all criticism, whether good or bad. I just want to know because I want to make it better for you guys. So, the last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. What staying informed means is that you don't take everything at face value. You literally go in beyond what you've been told, try to find out the truth for yourself, and try to find the source to do so, and be able to do that with other people in hopes of inspiring them. Because an uninformed community makes terrible decisions, but an informed community can make a better one because an uninformed community basically got us Trump, and that's how the frack we got here. So thank you everybody for watching. Again, I cannot stress it enough, and I will keep saying it, but thank you everybody who's watched, like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you a little bit later for the Off Limits podcast, and for Get Bit later tomorrow night. Aside from that, hope you all guys have a wonderful weekend. If I can find words, that'd be great. But aside from that, take care, guys.